Yep. All good. Over to you, Annalie.
Great. Thank you, Madura, and thank you, Julia. Hi, everyone. My name is Annelie Wembelink, and as Julia said, I'm currently serving as an information security leader at BP. And I'm very happy to share my journey with you today and hopefully provide you with some insights into navigating a career in information security. So let me start by giving you a little bit of a background into my education and my entry into information security. My formal education wasn't specifically in cybersecurity. I earned a master's degree from UCL, but back then, dedicated cybersecurity degrees were less common than they are today. And the reason or how I got into it originally is what drew me to the field, essentially, was the growing importance that digital security had in our interconnected world. Essentially, I kept seeing increased incidents emerge in the news, and I was really just curious to explore a bit more. So early on in my career, I made a strategic decision to try to build expertise in this growing area and find a job that allowed me to get an entry-level position in this field. So my journey into information security really began when I had a security associate role where I was handling much more operational security checks, more mundane day-to-day activities. But that gave me valuable frontline experience in security operations. I then moved into a risk and security analyst role in a global security operations center. And that's where I started essentially responding to major security incidents. This experience proved instrumental to me when I decided to move into a more business-facing role, so an information security senior advisor role, where I was able to leverage my operational experience into a more business-led kind of environment. And I saw the biggest transformation happen that kind of defined my career since then. As my career progressed, I also invested a lot in professional certifications. So just to name a few, CISSP, CIPM, CRISC, CISM, and a few other ones that I invested in over the years. These certifications not only strengthened my technical knowledge, but also demonstrated early on my commitment to the field. I'm also a firm believer in continuous learning. So I actively maintain active memberships to professional organizations that are related to cybersecurity, such as ISACA, for example. And I'm also pursuing different courses. So with the latest trend in AI, I'm making sure that from a security perspective, I'm catching up. So I have completed an AI fundamental certificate from ISACA and Azure AI fundamentals as well. So, and I'm expecting AI, by the way, to reshape the way that we do security in the future, and therefore adapting myself to what's happening in the industry. I will also say that early on in my career, I had a choice to go down into more technical role or into a more business-led role. And as you might have understood from what I've said so far, I chose the latter, a more business-led role. And why? Well, I found that technical expertise alone wasn't enough. I had to develop skills in risk management, budget management, strategic thinking, and stakeholder communications to advance the career the way I wanted it to advance. And one skill that I specifically had to develop was trying to translate more technical concept into simple business language that everyone can understand. So, and that specific skill is something that I've definitely been able to leverage to be able to influence different executives and align security initiatives to different business objectives as well. I think a major success factor in my career so far is being able to see beyond the technical aspects. I think I've been able to essentially look at how security impacts the business, but also what does the business need from security or cybersecurity. As for challenges, I think the rapidly evolving nature of threats that cybersecurity sees, and AI is only one of the many new ones, means that I definitely need to keep up with my knowledge and adapting the way we do things. Another significant challenge in this space has been changing organizational mindsets around security. From moving from basically a compliance-focused approach to more of a risk-based and value-driven approach. How can a business cybersecurity program or implementation of cybersecurity make a difference in how it adds value to the business? Really, really keen to do that as well. So I guess my journey from operational roles to more strategic leadership positions in cybersecurity has been very rewarding and challenging. I love my job, to be fair, and I'm very passionate to share these experiences with others as well. If you can learn from it, great, of course. But yeah, I'm very happy to have a chat about that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anneli. That's a great introduction. And yes, indeed. So we are having a format of a chat when it comes to exploring a career in information security. And I do have a couple of questions to you, which I hope our community will find useful. But if there is something on your mind, don't hesitate to paste your question in the chat and we will address it in the end of the session. So Anneli, I wanted to start with a question, which I think is maybe most probably on everyone's mind. So what challenges did you face as a woman in cybersecurity, especially back in the day? And maybe you can explain how you've seen these challenges maybe evolving from, kind of 10 years ago to now, and also how you overcame them.
Yeah. Good question, Julia. And I think there's a couple of things. And let me start with the very first one. One of the most notable challenges as a woman in cybersecurity has been navigating environments where I was often one of the very few women in the room, if not the only woman. This was particularly evident in my early career, where information security was even more male-dominated than it is today. So definitely a first challenge. And what I would say is ignore it. Don't overthink it. It is what it is. You can make a difference. The second thing I would say is definitely unconscious bias. And I have examples of sometimes being mistaken for the administrative staff member that takes notes rather than a security expert, for example, in meetings, or have my technical expertise questioned by more rigorously than by my male counterparts, for example. And rather than becoming confrontational, I address this by consistently demonstrating through technical knowledge and delivering results that just spoke for themselves. I think the other challenge I also found is finding relatable mentors and role models. I thought it was very difficult to find someone in the same situation as I did. So, joining professional connecting with women leaders across different sectors even who face similar challenges has been helpful. To be very honest as well, one of my previous bosses is one of my heroes and one of my mentors today. And I will be very honest, I sought mentorship based on expertise and not gender. Some of the most supportive mentors I have had were men who recognized talent and potential. I think what ultimately allowed me to succeed was focusing on building a distinctive personal brand, being true to myself as well, and just leveraging my unique perspective on things. Remaining delivery focused and business focused, to really lead to positive outcomes for the business. So thanks for the question, Julia. I hope that answered it a bit.
No, thank you so much. And thank you for opening up about your challenges. I mean, me, myself, I'm having background in information security too. I can definitely relate to some of these challenges, especially finding, relatable role models. And I think that in the last decade, there's definitely an improvement, definitely still a long way to go, but there is some improvement in that field. And we see more diversity, that's for sure. But I think the more we speak about it, the more it's going to move into even more positive direction. So, Annalie, you mentioned that when it comes to you capitalizing sort of on the success on the cybersecurity industry and in terms of how you approached your industry was more in the business side. But I was wondering, what advice would you give to women looking to transition into cybersecurity from particularly technical backgrounds? And as you were pretty much saying that one of the successes was understanding business, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that in terms of what women from technical backgrounds should be looking out for.
Yeah. So I would first want to emphasize that cybersecurity desperately needs different and diverse perspectives and backgrounds, technical and non-technical. My own path demonstrates that you don't need to start with a degree to build a career in cybersecurity, but you can go either direction. There's a lot of scope in what cybersecurity covers and information security more broadly. First, I would also tell women looking to transition to cybersecurity is focus on identifying your transferable skills and how to apply them in security. So for example, if you have a background in compliance or in project management, these skills are highly valuable in security roles. Secondly, I would encourage people to think very strategically about what certifications they go and fulfill, and I would encourage them to do so, but think about it strategically. So choose certifications that complement existing experience and align with your career goals. So don't start with the most complex and difficult certifications. That might not be the best choice. Sometimes more attainable or the first entry step certifications, often like CompTIA Security Plus, might be a good starting point. And I would say gain experience where you can, and even within your place of work, there might be volunteering opportunities for security-related projects, or participate in open source security tooling development, for example, if you're more interested in a technical aspect, or just contribute in security communities. So women coding community is a great one to contribute to as well. And let me have a think. The other thing I would definitely add is develop a security mindset and vocabulary. So read industry publications, follow thought leaders, participate in forums, attend webinars, listen to podcasts. So, and just to name a few, right? Especially when I started my career, I used to obsessively listen to this one podcast that's called Risky Business. I thought they were great, honestly. Or even Darknet Diaries, a bit more serious, but really interesting from a conceptual perspective. Or any other magazines and news articles like Krebs on Security is very well recognized in the industry, or Dark Reading, for example, that summarizes events in the industry really, really well in this field. So yeah, I would definitely suggest that women focus on those. Another thing that I would definitely add is, as I said, leverage your unique perspective as an advantage. The fact that you might not come from a cybersecurity background or degree definitely helps you bring in something else to the role and might make you stand out. So your non-traditional backgrounds might offer a different perspective than a purist cybersecurity person might do. And finally, I would definitely say build your your network intentionally as well. So I think I've mentioned it. Join professional organizations, join conferences, participate in online communities like this one, but get to know people in the field, because that's how you will get into this field, essentially. I would just want to conclude by saying that cybersecurity encompasses much more than just technical roles. There's a high demand of professionals who can translate security concepts into business stakeholders, manage security projects, develop policies, lead teams, and all these are roles where transferable skills from non-technical backgrounds can be added. And I will also say technical roles, if you are from a technical background but not cybersecurity, relies on good technology and good people that know how to manage that technology. So definitely a transferable skill as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Annalie. That was super helpful, and I hope this did help to our community to understand a little bit more how that transition is possible. All right. Well, Annalie, I assume that in your position, you are quite experienced when it comes to hiring excellent cybersecurity professionals. So I guess my next question is, so if you were hiring a top cybersecurity expert, top cybersecurity professional, what would you be looking for? What skills, mindset, or experience? And I know that this is contingent with the seniority of role, but for our purposes, let's take kind of a mid role, maybe even more on the junior side. So what is that you would be on the look for?
Yeah. I've had my first share of interviews, and you learn a few things in the process as well. But if I were hiring for a cybersecurity role today, I would look for technical skills, but I'll also look beyond technical skills to the person's expertise, mindset, and even leadership qualities. So I'm often open to learning a new perspective. So someone who understands how security enables the business rather than just preventing risks. That's if someone can come into an interview and demonstrate that, for me, that's almost an immediate win. I also look for people that can demonstrate ability to navigate complexities and uncertainties. We live, as I said, in a very complex and interconnected world. Someone that can make sense of that is a highly desirable candidate. Third, I would say I would prioritize communications and influence as well. So you need to be able to communicate, even as a technical security person, about what's happening, because what you're trying to do is protect the business, but also enable it. And how do you do that? By communicating with people. So a good communicator for me is a really strong point for any cybersecurity professional. I also value experience from building and leading diverse teams. So I found that diverse teams consistently develop more innovative and comprehensive security solutions or mitigations to security risks. So yes, if you demonstrate you can bring a new perspective into the team, I also think that's a big win. And I'm always looking for someone that's willing to learn and adapt. As the landscape evolves and as businesses evolve with new threats, technologies, and regulatory requirements, being adaptable is a key skill that I am definitely looking for. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I don't think
No, it definitely does. I just wanted to ask on the second point, which I find quite interesting, and maybe just a little bit of elaboration would be useful. So when you say that it's indeed super valuable when someone is able to navigate complexities, right, of sort of context scenarios and the world that we live in, how would you essentially want someone to demonstrate that, so through which, what could be a potential answer or sort of way of thinking that that person should have to pretty much impress you that they are able to navigate complexities?
Yeah, I would say there's two ways of answering that question: a technical way and a non-technical way. I'll give you both.
Mhm.
So the technical way is complexity in system thinking. The ability to understand how different components of systems interconnect and affect each other. The most team members are able to understand that and pinpoint where the weaknesses are. So that's the technical answer. And believe me, in the organizations, especially big ones, there's a lot of interconnectivity.
Yes,
so that's number one.
Thinking, yeah.
Second complexity is the business and perhaps even the wider industry you operate in and whatever business you're in. The business strategy and what it means is trying to decompose that into actionable actions for you to take. So you might all know this, strategic thinking is often a tagline, and then developing that into actionable outcomes that lead to security improvements is a challenging and complex task. So someone that can take that and say, this is how we should apply it, and this is how I break it down, that security in a complex task, that's a very valuable skill to do as well, to have as well, sorry.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for clarification. That really helps. But if anyone wants to ask extra, feel free to post in the chat. All right, so we spoke quite a bit about sort of skills and the mindset, being curious, of wanting to learn, of understanding the complexity and appreciating the complexity of today's interconnectedness. So that's all great. But I was wondering, Annalie, so I guess from your experience, could you share with us what's, in your view, sets apart the cyber professional, a top cybersecurity professional, information security professional, from the rest? So what is that gives you this absolutely kind of standing out type of edge?
Yeah, it's a good question.
What will secure all the promotions, all the pay rises? What is that key?
There's not, unfortunately, there's not a single answer. I was say with
which
that.
I think is a good thing.
There's not a single answer.
Yes.
I will, however, say there's probably 5 things to consider. I'll start with the least important one.
Okay.
Because I think it built up quite nicely. Intellectual curiosity and continuous learning. So the best security professionals I've worked with are relentlessly curious about how systems work, how they can be compromised, how they can be protected. When I introduced AI adoption security processes at BP, those that excelled are those that proactively research emerging threats and unique to these technologies. So that's definitely the first one: intellectual curiosity and continuous learning. The second one is balanced skepticism. So, and I'm saying balanced skepticism because in a security world, you can often become paralyzed by the potential threat. However, the top security professionals I have worked with maintain a healthy skepticism without becoming paralyzed by these different threats or risks. So they identify what's genuine risk versus what is
just apparent. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and obviously me as a risk professional, I find this quite often as well, to be honest, when I do my risk assessment workshops, with the business, and they just spiral into, oh my God, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. And then I'm like, well, guys, wait, that's not what we're doing today. We're not here to capture all the possible scenarios. We're here to actually be realistic in terms of what are the current uncertainties, vulnerabilities, like what's that we need to be worried about, because otherwise you can just spiral, right? And indeed, like I've worked with some information security professionals when like everything is in red, like we had this saying, for them everything is in red. And that's when the problems arise, because there is no budget for everything in red, right? And there is budget only for things that needs to be sort of fixed. So I think this is a very good I think advice for cybersecurity for sure, because there is always a risk, but it's about what is that is meaningful for the business, and what is that ultimately jeopardizes business objectives, right? So that's what we need to care about the most.
Yeah, I agree. And this is where the next part of my next slide also comes in. It's effective communication across different audiences. So ability to understand the problem and tell that to technical teams and non-technical teams, to leaders and non-leaders, so that we're all behind the same problem, so that we all have a common understanding of what's the main thing that we need to focus on. That's a very key skill to have as well. And it helps the previous one, by the way. So once you have a good balance on risk, how do you deliver it? So that's definitely another one. And the next thing I would say is resiliency and adaptability. I've said, cybersecurity changes a lot. Cybersecurity, the business often changes a lot as well. And security can often be a bit of a thankless work or job. When success is often being invisible and failure is highly visible. So when everything goes well, you don't hear about from the cybersecurity team. When everything goes wrong is when you really hear about from them. So the professionals who strive to maintain a positive attitude despite these challenges and adapt quickly to different situations, right? From one moment, everything is good. The next moment, you're under attack. You switch very quickly. So that resiliency and adaptability being very, very keen as well. And finally, I would say that the best security professionals, understand the human element in security and cybersecurity. They recognize that security isn't just about technology. It's about the human behavior, how organizational culture influences that, and what the incentives of individuals are. So you can put all the technical controls in place, and the human element might fail you. So I think these qualities, essentially, curiosity, balance, skepticism, communications, and that kind of stuff, keen, but also don't forget the human, because it is, at the end of the day, humans that attack through the malicious attackers, and humans that are affected as well. Humans and businesses.
No, for sure. That makes perfect sense. Well, thank you. That's a great summary. I really loved it. It's super helpful. I think, just, I guess, for our community to have this differentiation and, aim for the higher, right? Aim for the best. So that's really helpful. All right. So with that, this leads me to the next questions. So, like in any industry, which maybe we don't know enough about, or we're looking to sort of move, there's all these sort of stories and misconceptions and sort of maybe even biases. So I guess my question is, when it comes to information security or cybersecurity specifically, so what are those misconceptions, the most common misconceptions that you hear people from non-cyber background believing in, talking about, and what's the actual reality of it?
I think one of the most common misconceptions is that the industry or cybersecurity professionals keep quiet it's a deeply collaborative field.
Mm.
Much of my time today is spent engaging with people, influencing decisions, building partnerships, just to make security more effective and efficient. So that's the first thing. I think the second one I will say as well, because I get this all the time, every day, is that security, another misconception is that security professionals are focused on saying no to business initiatives.
I've heard that one
Not
before.
no.
Yeah,
I'm
just
the
no.
only one who's ever heard this.
Everything is a risk.
Everything, don't do it. And the reality is that security should be enabling the business. So if you can do some things more securely and faster and better, that's only going to gain your client trust, your stakeholder trust, your shareholder trust, etc. So I really think that that is something that's a misconception, and I never say no. I always find an alternative, but I never say no to my business. I say, not appropriate, but consider this. That's the way that we should work and the way that we deliver the most value. And I would say another thing, technical skills, they're so useful in cybersecurity. But I will want to reemphasize, cybersecurity is not about just having deep coding expertise or highly specialist technical skills. These skills are very valuable, but the field needs more diverse competencies and perspectives. So, people with risk background, communications, project management, change management, all these are really good skills to have as well. Yeah, and the other thing, and I'm sure you might relate to this as well, Julia, but another misconception is that cybersecurity is all about preventing dramatic hacks and data breaches. I mean, yes, I do hear about them.
They do happen.
But actually, the reality of much of the day-to-day is about addressing more mundane but critical issues, such as, hey, how do we improve access controls, access management controls? How do we ensure secure configuration across our applications? How do we manage our vulnerabilities? How do we improve our security awareness program? It's all these other things that aren't always attacks. What you're trying to do is prevent those. If you're there, it's too late. Right, so you're all focusing on the prevention. Yeah, and I guess another misconception, I think, is that cybersecurity sometimes is a rigid and compliance-driven discipline, especially if you talk to more old school mindsets. That's what they think. That's a tick in a box, maybe, essentially. And the reality I've experienced is that security requires creativity and innovation. Technology is changing, so how we respond from a cybersecurity perspective and information security perspective must adapt. So yeah, that's I think more or less how I misconceptions, what the misconceptions are around cybersecurity.
Yeah, I think, from my experience, one of the most common misconceptions, which pretty much I think sums up everything what you just said, is, thinking that cybersecurity is something separate. It's this another pot that's sitting somewhere out there, right? Whereas actually, it's literally in the every single thing you do in the business, whether you are a coder, you're an engineer, software developer, you work in marketing, communication, doesn't matter. Everyone has cybersecurity responsibilities. It's part of everything. It's inherent. It's security by design, right? And I think going back to your point on the culture, right, on the mindset, it's everyone is part of it, right? So it's not just this team that sort of sits there, right? And that brings us back to these sort of lines of defenses, right? The first line that protects us from all these malicious hacks and all these nasty things happening is the actual business, right? Because they are on the front line. So I think that's something that's definitely useful for everyone to remember. All right. So before we go, give the word to our audience, I could see there's a couple of questions, some really good questions that's been asked. Annalie, so you said that cybersecurity, and we all know, super dynamic, crazy world. A lot of these technologies, from AI to quantum to all sorts. So how do you personally stay ahead, or at least in tune with all these innovations that are taking place?
Oh, I guess through active membership, professional organizations, as I mentioned.
Yeah, because they just send you very good updates, whether it's a journal, magazine, or
Yeah,
email, right? They sort of filter this out for you.
correct. They do. They do. I pursue new certifications and courses where possible and where needed. So AI, new trend, definitely. If you're in the field, try to get on it. It will be in security, will affect security. We will use it in security. It's not here to go away. I dedicate time to read industry research and threat intelligence reports as well. So keen because it influences what we need to look out for and what's coming up. As I said, podcasts and that kind of stuff. When I drive to work, I turn on a podcast and I'm listening. And that's a way for me to do two things in one go without obviously creating any accidents. But yeah, it's a good resource. And also attend conferences, engage with technology vendors, security startups. They all offer something. And while 90% of them offer very similar technical tools, there's a 10% that's new, innovative, and really cool to explore further. So yeah, definitely do that. Yeah, and I would always say I like learning through practice. So if you see a new opportunity, don't wait until you know how to do it. Try to do it. I always encourage my team to try things. If they fail, usually it's not going to be a big deal,
Yeah,
especially
that's
if
okay.
it's
We're in the innovative world, right? Failing is not a
try.
shame as it used to be.
Just try. And especially if it's an experiment. A new team member says they've never done a pen test. I'm like, okay, great. Try once. If you fail, learn again. You do better the second time.
Totally.
And that is a type of advice that I would give people. Obviously, don't break anything whilst you're pen testing, because that's a bad thing to do. But my
Yeah,
point
but
is,
there are ways how you can practice safely, guys. Please Google that if you ever want to do a pen test.
so yeah, I think that is another thing. Just if you see an opportunity, grab it. Don't wait until you necessarily have all the knowledge. You'll learn on the job.
Yeah. And I think what I find quite useful, just to, kind of be in touch with things I like or particular sort of trends in the industry that I work, is, following appropriate or, relevant people, let's say on the LinkedIn, and, listen to what they have to say, because they are the type of people who always reflect on the industry trends, on what's going on whether it's a hack or, cyber attack that happened, right? And in general, utilize your network, speak with people, even the people that are not necessarily, from these industries, like share perspectives, add value through conversation with, whether it's cybersecurity professional or wider operational professionals. I think the network is definitely proved to me to be one of the kind of major shapers, let's say, of staying in touch. All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Annalie. That was helpful. Very, nicely structured responses, which I think, were quite applicable to various type of people with different type of backgrounds. So I'll pass on to Madura now, because she will navigate through some of the questions that you posted, guys. But feel free to add more as we are continuing with our chat.
Oh, thank you, Julia. Thanks, Annalie. That was really helpful, because it was really good answers at this point. Really, thank you so much. We have few questions. The first one I'll take is from Lakshmi. How
That's
did you manage to translate technical topics to business language and get non-technical people to understand it? I'm finding that as I'm progressing more in my career, I'm having to talk a lot with internal stakeholders about technical topics and try and explain things to them. I think most of us engineers struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's several things I would answer to that. And Lakshmi, thanks. Sorry, apologies if I'm not saying your name right. But there's a couple of things I would recommend. First of all, lose all technical jargon.
like abbreviations and this type of stuff.
Abbreviations, anything. Like even I use pen test. They don't know what it is. Don't use that technical language. They won't get it. That's my first recommendation. The second thing I would say is focus on outcomes and business impact rather than process. Instead of explaining how technology works, emphasize how the business is impacting by that technology. So try to translate it into why should you care? Not this is how the process works and technology works. They don't care. They want to know, okay, what does it mean to me? So translate it into what the business impact is. So, if you're not encrypting your data, basically means anyone can read it. That's what they care about. Not the fact that encryption requires, ASE 1256 or something like that. They don't care about that. Honestly, forget about it. The other thing I would say is I love using analogies to connect people to familiar concepts. Perfect example. I had a business leader ask me about HTML weaknesses like yesterday. I'm not going to give you the background because it's not important. I probably can't disclose it either. But he was asking me about HTML weaknesses. And instead of trying to explain what each weakness meant, I just made the analogy of a house. And I said, your HTML weaknesses at this point means that your windows are open.
I love it.
And that he got. So use analogies where you can so that they can relate to the problem. Simple things. And where I need, visual aids can help a lot of people as well. Visually explaining things, especially when you're trying to think about systems, sometimes if people see the systems and how they interconnect, that helps them understand what the problem is. And finally, listen carefully to the question. They're often not asking you for the technical explanation. They're asking you what it means for them. But it might be also something else. So listen carefully to the question. I hope that helps, Lakshmi. But if not, just ask another follow-up questions and I'll try to answer that.
That definitely helped me. I even took notes.
Yeah.
Even though that's what I do for my job, I was like, let me write this down. No, but I really love what you said, because so often when we're so into the detail of things, we just start explaining the process, right? Like, I'm not from the most technical background, but I find myself doing that, because when you're so into detail, when you're building, whatever you're doing, regardless whether it's in engineering or in whatever, it's so hard to elevate yourself back up. It's so hard. It takes practice and it's a skill, but it's something that we can do for sure, because we have the hardest part. We know the technical side of things, so just elevation and actually asking yourself, so what, like that's what we need to think about. And thank you so much, Annalie, for reminding to us as well.
That was really informative. Thank you so much. That really helped. We do have one more question from Catalina. Very inspired by your story. Could you sketch out what a typical day for you looks like? Actually, even I had the same question. What is your typical day look like? And I
Um,
didn't finish the question. There's a little more to it. And what a day looks like for you now, or when you started first, what it looked like, and
Versus
what
now,
the day
yeah.
looks now. And I can imagine what sort of things might happen for security people at technical and low level end, which is my interest at the moment. But I'm curious to understand the non-technical side of the space.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So back in the day, when I started my career, I should say,
Let's not say it was too long ago.
no, no, no. My back in the day, my day was quite hands-on and reactive. I used to work in a security operations center. I would check security alerts, logs overnight, investigate any suspicious activities. Um, my morning involved triaging alerts, for example, determining where false positives were, what needed further investigation, for example. Um, Afternoons would maybe include some sort of remediation work, maybe running a scan or something like that. But it was much more hands-on. I would document everything as well. So that was highly needed, still is, but differently. Trying to, especially for compliance purposes, that technical detail was useful actually. And spend time researching emerging threats as well. So it was much more hands-on and reactive and looking at what had happened, what the handover said needed to be continued as well, because we worked in a 24/7 kind of capacity. So what do we need to do? What is the next thing to scan, look out for, etc. My day now is much more different. I spend a significant amount of time with my team. And I think I strongly believe in developing people and giving them all the tools they need to succeed. So I spend quite a bit of time with my team and leading them to deliver good outcomes. I spend quite a bit of my time into more strategic meetings. So, for example, reviewing what our goals are or discussing major initiatives and how we're going to support these, or meeting up with architects, for example, for big infrastructure changes, for example. Also, a lot of it is around reporting and governance, different type of reporting than in the technical role. It's more about keeping my stakeholders informed about what's happening, what happened with the incident in business language, what are the major threats, what are the emerging risks, so how the risks have changed, for example, as well. I regularly meet with the business. And I think, I don't know if I said it, I think I implied it. I strongly believe that as security professionals, we're here to serve the business, not the other way around. So trying to have that direct connection to the business helps me understand their context and be able to do our job better. And whilst I don't handle incidents directly, if there ever was a major event, I would definitely step up as well. And just to be able to inform the business as to how we're dealing with that event. That communication, simplifying it for the business, what does it mean for you? It's part of what I would do in those cases as well. And I think a bit more on your question, Catalina, but the biggest shift, I think, for me was from implementing security controls myself to building the capability for others to be able to do it in a systematic and strategic way that aligns to the business. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Catalina, I suppose? Oh, all good. Thank you. There is another question come statement from Catalina. I marvel at the sheer scope of security in that it seems to intersect with every aspect of tech, safe coding standards, reducing attack surface and the number of vulnerabilities, encouraging anti-social engineering habits, managing regular updates of the software dependencies, real-time monitoring, network architecture, as well as things on the horizon like quantum technologies and AI. Is it fair to say that in this field of security, a large part of your role is championing the importance of security to senior management?
Oh.
So
I like the really long list you presented there,
it's
Catalina.
Very
But
exhaustive. I love it. Yeah.
it is, yeah, it is
What we were
entire
discussing.
spectrum.
and
Mhm.
you're absolutely right. The scope is big. I like to think of us like an octopus, but with hundreds of tentacles everywhere in the organization. So yes, I would agree with that. And yes, championing the importance of security to senior management is part of my role. But the importance to them, not to me. It's important to me because it's my job, but it's important to them because it protects them in the business.
Mm.
That's the importance and why I need to tell them about it. So I would definitely advocate to, make sure that security is a business priority, and it often competes with other business priority. But the way to make cases for security investments with the business is highlighting how it impacts the business in a positive and value-driven way. The other thing I would say is building that strong security culture with the business really helps advancing a good security agenda. So they need to get it for you to get better at security. Because I go back, the human elements in security is your Achilles heel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the discussion with the cybersecurity expert won't be complete if I don't ask you what is the recent threat you have dealt with, you or your team, because without that, I mean, we can't end this talk. We have to have some sort of what's the latest threat. You don't have to disclose everything.
Or at
But
least the common one. If you can't disclose the latest one, you
yeah,
have.
let me-
What's
I'll,
the
I'll
most
tell
common
you.
one?
I'll tell you that there's never ever just a single threat in a single week or a single incident that we deal with. Now, most of them are minor and they're easily stopped. Number one incident by far, and every industry leader will agree with you, phishing. The amount of people, and even with all the best phishing controls and email filtering, phishing still comes through because they're getting better at it as well.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and
number
phishing,
one,
that's a malicious email that comes into your lovely inbox and pretends to be
Yeah,
something
just
that it's
somebody.
not.
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you for
absolutely.
explaining it in
Just in
non-security language, Julia. Yes. So,
Exactly. See, I already learned from you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, and they're getting smarter with AI. It's even more, trickier to find out if it's a real email or not. Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, because AI is not going to only enhance, us in terms of coming up with amazing and new controls, but also it unfortunately will equip the attackers to become more sophisticated. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
something to keep in mind.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
And the other thing I'll say, so that's the most common one, but not the most exciting one often. There's much more exciting incidents happening, and especially when it starts touching our operations, that's where things get a little bit, obviously, more sensitive. So if some sort of control system is compromised because it relies on a third-party vendor or something like that,
Right.
yeah, becomes much more high risk because it has a direct impact on operations, safety, commercials, and everything else as well.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really fantastic. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Julia.
Conscious of time, apologies, everyone, we're a little bit over, but it's a great discussion, so hard to stop, but we have to. But Annalie, thank you so much for your time, for coming, joining our community today. Thank you for sharing all your insights, being so open and honest and real about what cybersecurity career is like. That was super great. I took some notes, some hope others as well. But yes, guys, any questions, feel free to reach out on Slack. You always more than welcome to share your afterthoughts with Annalie on LinkedIn, with myself, Madura. So don't be strangers. Ping us if anything. And yes, once again, thank you, Annalie. Thank you, Madura. Thank you, everyone,
so
for
much.
joining.
Yeah,
I hope
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
We're
you,
going to close
Annalie.
the call now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.